Alf, I really want you to pay attention, buddy, because this talk is probably going to be the one that's going to be the hardest talk I've ever given, because I'm going to have a hard time getting through it, because I've been immersing myself in this stuff for the last 2 weeks, and this is something I'm really passionate about. By the way, the reason why you guys all got games is because I was thinking about you over the break, and I was praying for you. And what I was doing was, and when I was looking at, I was trying to figure out a just way to do this, and I was like, what would God do in this situation? Well, if God was in charge of the world, there is enough stuff. There's enough food, there's enough water, there's enough shelter. There is enough stuff in our resources in our world for everyone to have everything they need. The problem is that we chase after things that we want in life, not things that we need. Because all we really need is Jesus Christ. Everything else, we need some food, we need some shelter, we need some water, we need people to love us. But first of all, we need Jesus Christ. And everything else will flow from that. But if Christ really was at the center of our world, and really was the center,
we would die.
No, we wouldn't die. If Christ really was, first of all, this would be more like heaven, maybe even be heaven, and everyone would have everything they needed. And I really feel like I know from having the Jenga game in my small group that if you guys use these games properly, this provides something you can sit in the middle of your small group while you're having your discussion, you can play. But I know if you guys are like me, and some of you are very much like me, that I function a lot better when my hands are doing something. Like if I'm texting, or I have a bad attention span. So we're going to meet you in the middle. Sometimes we're not going to play games when we do our small groups because it's a really serious topic. We want you to focus. But when we can allow you to do that, we want you to. Because I know that it's tough for you to focus. Because it's tough for me to focus. We live in a very busy world. All right. I'm going to summarize the entire semester with this quote from Scripture. And basically, I can even go, I'll even be so bold as to say, I can summarize everything Jesus Christ taught in one line. You shall love the Lord your God with your heart, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. That's it. That's all you need to know. If you love God, if you put Christ at the center of your life, if you make Him first in your life, then everything else will make sense. Because then you will love your neighbor. And then there's a whole bunch of issues there. Like what blocks us from putting Jesus at the center of our lives? How do we not listen to God's will in our lives? Unpacking this is the tough part. This is easy to say, really hard to live. And the whole love your neighbor as yourself. Well, as somebody who's struggled a long time in his life with self-loathing, with body images, like I struggled a lot with not liking myself. So liking somebody like I like myself was really easy when I hated myself. Like you look at me like I'm seriously. I spent most of my teenage years not dealing well with the fact that I didn't like myself. This is the heart of our semester, though. Everything we do for the rest of this semester is going to come back to this: putting Jesus first and making Jesus' love known to the world. The Second Vatican Council wrote this great document called Gaudium Spes. It's Latin, but in English it means Church in the Modern World. And what it talked about was, and what Pope Benedict has been talking about since he was Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, has been making Christ known to the world. The Eucharist is about a horizontal relationship between us and God, right? But there's also a vertical component. How do we make Christ present to other people? How do we become Christ? You know that old saying, you are what you eat? Well, how do you become what you eat and live that out in the world? Well, that's what social justice is all about. You know what? The world has secularized this one. Do you know what I'm about to talk about? The golden rule, which is?
Treat others as you want.
The guy who's the gold makes the rules.
Ah, terrible.
Say please and thank you.
No.
Love others the same as you.
That's what I was looking for. Love those. Wait.
Well, do unto others.
Yeah, actually, technically, it's do unto others as you have them do unto you. But the golden rule is a lame secularization of what I just said before. Because the reality is, we need to love others as Christ has loved us. And if you look at how Christ loved us, just on a crucifix, He poured out His entire being to be like us. Alex.
Especially to blow your mind.
Blow my mind, brother.
What if you don't care how other people treat you?
That's
why.
But the thing is, if you acknowledge, hold on, I want to blow your mind. If you would only see God as God sees you, I'm going to get into this in my talk, but you are all made in the image and likeness of God. You are made with human dignity based on the fact that you exist. You are made in the image and likeness of God, which means that you have innate worth. From your natural conception till your natural death, you are a valued person, just as you are. All right, I'm going to take this question, and then you guys are going to stop throwing off my rhythm. Go.
This is kind of a comment that all the major religions have the same general rule.
All the major religions have the same general rule, yes. But the difference is in the intent, okay? Follow me. There are two people who come out, and they are both doing acts of social justice. They're helping, let's say they're feeding the hungry, because I'm going to talk more about that too. They're feeding the hungry, okay? One person is doing it because they want everyone to know how awesome they are, and one person is doing it because they've experienced Jesus Christ in their life, and they want to make Christ known to the world. On the exterior, they both look like they're doing the right thing, but God knows the interior. And this is why I'm telling you, the important thing about this whole semester is not just that you hear this, not that you just don't go and do it, that you do it because you want other people to know who Jesus Christ is by the acts, what they call, we just talked about this corporal mercy. Those are those charades names we're using, which is helping people, making Christ known to the world. All right. So listen to the last part of that verse. It says loving your neighbor as yourself, right? We talked a lot about the first part, loving God, but loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, think about how you would feel. And I think that's the biggest struggle we have, is that we're so self-centered, at least I am, that I never think about when I do something how my actions are going to affect somebody else. Like when somebody's being picked on at school, or there's gossip floating around. How do you feel when somebody gossips about you? How about when somebody's excluded? How do you feel? If you've ever been excluded, how do you feel? If somebody you see is hungry, by the way, this is the first picture that came up when I did hungry. If hungry, I could have probably gotten around the corner, 4 blocks past the Ultramar, down the road, down English Street. Could have walked down that street in the broad daylight and taken some pictures of the hungry. Just so you know, Hungary is right around the corner, not just in Africa or in another foreign country. But have you ever been hungry? How do you deal with that? Who are we?
Look at your armpit.
I'm Alec.
I'm sweating?
You're Brett.
Who are we?
Who are we?
Armpit.
Who are we? Well, I'm throwing it up. Who are we? Who are we? Wait a second. We're the Catholic Church. And as the Catholic Church, we've been doing this for generations. Since Jesus Christ himself. If you read back to
That's been 11 years ago. Yeah.
Oh my.
little more, little less, does it really matter? Not really. To me it doesn't, because it's about Jesus. Jesus Christ literally fed the hungry, he clothed the naked, he buried the dead, he did all those corporal acts of mercy. But let's talk about it. Look, there's feeding the hungry, there's one of my heroes, Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta. He provided for people who needed stuff, which is clothing in this case, healed the sick, built schools, and much, much more. But this all comes back to the fact that saints, popes, and the church have been saying for 2,000 years that we need to live out our social teaching. We need to examine our attitudes. The tradition of the church gives us a wonderful opportunity. It allows us to examine our everyday week and say, okay, this is where I've been awesome, God, and this is where I've sucked. And not that everyone's like, have you ever heard of the term Catholic guilt? If you haven't, Catholic guilt means that, when you do something bad, you feel bad about it. Well, guilt's a good thing sometimes. But sometimes what they call Catholic guilt, it's like, well, I was born in a first world country where I have everything I need, and you get all guilty about the fact there's people somewhere else starving. And some of that guilt is good because we need to struggle against that social sin, but we also need to be aware that sometimes we are where we are because God is giving us an opportunity. If you have more than you need, that means that God is giving you the opportunity to provide for somebody else, to take away from some of your wants and provide for somebody else's needs. Keep focusing. Come on, Alex, come back. And that's what the church has been saying. We are called as a people to defend those who can't defend themselves. Here you go. This is one of my favorite books in the world. It's the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Here's what the Catechism says. In the Catechism it says, the Catholic Church teaching should help us provide criteria for judgment, and it gives guidance for actions. In light of what the Church teaches, we should look at how we live our lives and see where areas that we can become more Christ-like.